Okay, welcome everyone. This is the second roundtable for Birthing in New Earth. My name is Samantha, and we have some wonderful beings here. I'm really excited to have these ladies here. I really love what they're doing and sharing in the world, and this is why I've kind of gathered them together. The topic of our roundtable tonight is, or today, depends where you're at, is the sacred feminine, reclaiming, rewilding, and remembering. And I think this is a really important topic, and I'm really excited to share with these ladies. We have Mitle Southey. She's in the top corner, and she holds sacred space for women. She loves to guide women to rewild their hearts through the magic and medicine of circle. Her vision is that not only can all women attend safer and sacred gatherings, but that circles are embraced by organizations, businesses, institutions, and governments as part of a potent cauldron for communication, connection, collaboration, and circular leadership. Thank you, Mitle, for being here. And then just below her is Kimberly Jones. Kimberly Jones is a sacred feminine activist and soul midwife, 20 years helping awaken women rebirth the feminine in themselves, their lives, and the world. She's a spiritual mentor and wise woman who comes from a long lineage of intuitives and seers. Thank you, Kimberly, for being here. And then over to the side of Kimberly is Kerry Wilde, and she is a mother, personal soul stylist, and femme guide. Kerry guides women to connect to their highest muse and majesty through the art of intentional dressing and feminine rebirth. She inspires women to move through blocks and awaken a deep sense of freedom in their lives by tapping into the grace of all situations. Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, everyone. So I really wanted to open this conversation with what your thoughts are around reclaiming, rewilding, and remembering, and what do you feel that means for the sacred feminine? So maybe we'll start with Whitley.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, and thank you for those beautiful introductions. I always feel, I don't know if anybody else does, I always feel a bit awkward when you hear your own introduction. It's like, oh, that's me. Okay. So thank you. I guess the word that I really want to pick up on there for the work that I do is the rewilding aspect and the sacred feminine. There's just so many glorious conversations around what the feminine is and isn't. And I know Kimberly's work in this is fascinating to me. But for me, the feminine is immanent in the land, and that's where I come from. It is our reconnection to the landscape. It's our reconnection to earth. And therefore, how do we rewild that part of us that knows that we're not just a part of the landscape, but we are the landscape, and the landscape is us. So that phrase that I have about rewilding our hearts is finding that connection, finding that thread back to where we knew ourselves, where we were able to feel part of everything, so that we could claim that, I guess sovereignty is a word that a lot of people are using at the moment, but for me, it's that absolute knowing of our place and our space, and being willing to take up that space in the world, being willing to express ourselves and be the truest expression of ourselves, and to gather. Obviously circles is where I come from, so to be able to gather together and see each other's magnificence, see each other's qualities, see each other's beauty, see what each of us brings to that cauldron, which is a word I love, so that we can reclaim what we have lost through that rewilding process.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Kerry, would you like to add?
I love what Mitle just shared there, because for me, it feels the sacred feminine. You know, I don't feel it's female, you know, it's the sacred feminine is the essence and the energies of the land, just like Mitle said. It's like, it's a force, it's a pole that is here and lives within us, lives within each and every one of us, no matter what our gender is. So I know we all work with women, but this is for men as well. It's like we are all byproducts of the overculture that lied, and we're all dismantling the patriarchy, you might want to call it, or the overculture. But these toxic threads is what we are all dismantling, and we're seeing in the world the suffering that is taking place, but it's also taking place within all of us. So as we reclaim these parts of ourselves that are lost, it's actually a dismantling of the toxic threads of the culture within us. And what we see in the outer, in the macro, is what that has done to that, you know, what the culture and the byproduct is in the outer, in the macro, in the war, in the famine, in all the destruction that's happening on the planet. It's also, we are direct mirrors of that culture. And so what I see in my work with women, when we work with soul style, is actually women that are infantilized to the culture, that actually self-hatred being one of the biggest threads that I see with women, is not trusting themselves, not trusting their bodies, not really hating parts of their bodies, being self-critical, being completely lost in the sense of that intuition, that deeper knowing. And actually the male gaze as well being one of the primal reasons why women don't want to show up. And that male gaze, and that, which I just call the toxic gaze now, because it's men and women, and it actually lives within all of us. So when I work with women, it's about the descent into reclamation. So you mentioned reclaiming, rewilding, and remembering. It's about you and you. It's not about, you know, it is about gathering and being with other women, but it comes down to you dismantling these deep layers of mistruths that we've bought into and we've been conditioned into. And how do we remember? You know, what do we need to remember? What do we need to reclaim? And before we can even be the queen or the sovereign woman, because that is, you know, we see that out there so much, these words, oh, I want to be a queen. Yeah, how do I do that? It's going into the suffering that is existing within us so deeply. So we're so encoded with this suffering, and we're addicted to it because it's part of the patriarchy that we've been fully conditioned, indoctrinated into through schooling, through parents, through all of the loved ones that are, you know, we've come into contact with. And how do we get rid of that addiction? How do we then, you know, dismantle this to then become a pure embodiment of our soul? And so when I work on style, for me, it's like this embodiment process of birthing ourselves as this soul. So we can call it queen, which I do in my work. But yeah, I just wanted to pick up on those taglines that are so like, yeah, you know, be sovereign, be queen. It's like, hang on, let's go down and in and descend into the suffering, and before we can just step into that. So sorry, a bit of a rant there. But yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Kerry. That was wonderful. And how about you, Kimberly? What would you like to add?
Well, it's lovely to be here with you all, and thank you for the intro as well. And I really resonate with what Mitle and Kerry have both shared. And what's with me at the moment, what's rising for me at the moment, is an invitation to tune into and return to our natural way of being. So for me, the sacred feminine is a return to just simply our natural way of being. So, you know, if you go back 3,000 years, when we lived in a culture that honored the goddess, honored the feminine, honored the land, honored spirit, honored ancestors, we weren't walking around saying, oh, we're embodying the sacred feminine. You know, we were just being it, and we were just living in a way that felt natural and true. And I'm not saying it was perfect, but certainly when I'm working with women now, it's all about helping them to return to their true nature. And that tends to be, of course, there's a process absolutely of healing. Very much trauma is something I've been looking at for the last 3 years, personal, ancestral, collective, you know, societal trauma, and how that affects us hugely and actually takes us away from ourselves and takes us away from our bodies, out of our bodies. And so I noticed, I had all these ideas about what the healing work would be, but I noticed when I'm actually working with a woman, it's often, it's a step way before self-love or self-acceptance. It's even a return to self and the idea of self. Is it okay for me to acknowledge a self? Is it okay for me to think of myself? I remember one of the first teachers I ever worked with, a Canadian shaman, about 20 years ago. And the turning point for me, I would say, on that journey, that return journey home to myself and to my true nature, was when we were in the middle of a circle, and she just turned to me with these piercing eagle eyes that she would conjure up sometimes, and just said, what do you want? You know, you're saying all these things, but what do you want, Kimberly? And the pain was, the wound was not that I didn't know what I wanted. It was that I wasn't in myself to even access the information. I didn't have permission, or hadn't given myself permission. I wasn't in myself. So that broke me open. That broke my heart, because I realized I just wasn't present with my body, with my sense of who I was. And it's been an unpacking and an unraveling over that time, and realizing that it's trauma, that it's patriarchy, that it's abuse, and all the ways that things like the witch wound that I work with, of course, things like that manifest, that it's not safe to be me, it's not safe to be in my body, to be sexual, to be intuitive, to use my voice, to be powerful, to disagree, to wear what I want, to say what I want, to think what I want, to design a life around what my body needs, what my health challenges require, to kind of live on my own terms, really, and feel free in that space. But when I'm working one-to-one with a woman, to get to those places, it's very often just, how do you feel? And it's remarkable to me how many women, when I work with them, begin to work with them, don't know how to answer that question, just as I did 20 years ago. When I ask them, how are you feeling in this moment, they start telling me their thoughts, or what other people think, or what just happened a few hours ago. So for me, it's very much a journey of just coming back to the self, and then back to the body, and then back to self-love, and connecting to an energy of self-love, unconditional self-love. And for me, unconditional self-love is a portal, and it kind of flips, and then the sacred feminine energy and the divine feminine energy connects in and can flood the system. But it can be quite a journey just to get to self-love. Otherwise, we're imposing concepts of sacred feminine on someone that's not present with themselves yet, and that can feel quite distressing, and just, you know, trigger more feelings of failing and not being good enough. Again, sorry, it's a rant and a ramble, but yeah.
Yes, that was very beautiful. Thank you. I love what you shared, and I think it's so important. And I think kind of like the common theme that was coming through is like really getting back into ourselves, but there's so many layers that we need to navigate. You know, as you all said, it's like it's easy for us to say, let's tap into our sacred feminine, but there's just so many layers, and I think that's what you all work with. And maybe you can share some more things about how you work with women so how do we get to those deeper layers, and it seems it's like you said, it's a journey to get into that space. Would anyone can open up with that? Well, Kerry, what are some of the things that you work with women, and how do you help them get to that, into a more of a space of self-love, like speaking to her?
I feel like it's an invitation by the divine, actually. So women that come to me just feel a calling to do something deeper, to go to a place that you know, they might be magnetized by the word queen, or like, oh, I want to feel that way. But, or maybe they just want to feel a sense of self-love, or maybe the universe has triggered something really traumatic to happen that set them on a pathway to start to actually think, oh, actually, I'm not doing so good. You know, the pathway of depression, the pathway of anxiety, of overwhelm, of burnout. These are actually doorways into descending into feeling again. So it's actually a doorway of descent in any way, is like a surrender to the outer noise, the outer nightmare. So we can start to, and so that is like a feminine calling to this work. That's the invitation. And I mean, me personally, I had an illness that called, so it was labyrinthitis. It was an inner ear disorder where I lost my balance. I had flu-like symptoms. I felt dizzy all of the time. I had to take time out of work. And I was in a really stressful 9-to-5 corporate lifestyle at the time. I had a 2-year-old. I was flying to India in factories, kind of working a really heavy duty corporate role, managing people, and also had a husband as well. And I was managing him, and it just felt like a very full, over the top experience that women, you know, I was supposed to do all of these roles and fulfill them and still have a smile on my face, still be this sexy woman, still be the good daughter, still be the good wife, all of these masks that I was wearing. And labyrinthitis, this illness, was like the goddess coming knocking, saying, you're gonna sit on that sofa and you're gonna not move. And I was just like, I was crawling around my home. You know, I couldn't even get to work. I couldn't drive the car. So it really was a breaking down of the masculine corporate ladder that I've been climbing, and also the success points of what the outer culture was defining as good and pleasing and successful. So, you know, it wasn't working. And literally, I think the how, what you said, is like trusting the invitation, and it doesn't exactly look like what you think it's going to look. It's not like a, oh, you know, sometimes it's like fucking gonna shake you and wake you, and you're gonna be like, oh my God, who am I now? You know, who will I ever get to the light again? Will I ever feel like me again? Will I ever feel my body? Will I feel whole? So it's these points that can be like the feminine doorway of descent and surrender. And, you know, the how is like, are you ready? Are you going to trust that invitation? Are you ready to go down there, to reclaim what is yours, to remember who you are, to rewild and, you know, find that inner power that is going to help you to really live a more fulfilling life? One that may not look like they're telling you, you know, one that is very simple, or one that is just very free. So the how is, there's a massive process behind the work that I do, but I think it's like the first thing is, are you ready to trust that invitation when it comes knocking? Because she has a way of talking that may not look linear. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. How about you, Mitle? Because you're doing such beautiful work with circles, and what are things that you come across in the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you. I love what you shared, Kerry. It's so deep and powerful. And I think, interestingly, I was reflecting as you were speaking and thinking, because I don't necessarily use the term sacred feminine in my work. And what drew me to circles was, I think, really to disrupt the status quo of some of those things you were mentioning, Kerry. So my role is to be the space holder. So when I gather women together, it's to create a container that at least feels safer it's probably not safe for everyone and every circumstance, but to do what I can with integrity and authenticity to hold as safe a space as possible, where we get to both explore our own inner landscape and connect with that outer landscape. And I think it's a shifting really of coming into right relationship with ourselves. So yes, being able to connect with our bodies, being able to be truly present, being able to be witnessed, and then learning how to do that for others, learning to witness others in whatever they are experiencing, and breaking down or breaking free from those internalized systems that Kerry was talking about, because we function in that patriarchal hierarchical model. We function in a very adversarial model. If you have anything to do with the justice system or politics, it's very adversarial. There's always a hierarchy. And so we come from that place of really being domesticated, being tamed, being oppressed, being suppressed, being silenced, being controlled, being ignored, being dismissed, all of these things. And when we gather in circle, we suddenly find we're in a place where our voice is heard. We are allowed to speak with no one interrupting us. We don't have to receive other people's validation or opinions or judgment or advice. And so cultivating those spaces is what I'm really passionate about, because each of us will find our own healing route. And I don't suppose I think if you're human, you have trauma. So we've each got to find our way through that. And what I find in circles is that we can really hold a safer space for us, where we don't have to pick apart our individual trauma, and we don't have to re-traumatize ourselves in circle by continually sharing the same story. But what we can do is bring where we are in that moment. And with a space holder who has a deep capacity to guide and hold and facilitate that, we start to see those similarities, which again for me is part of that rewilding process, because it's reminding ourselves that we are nature, and that what actually binds us is not our differences. It's not even our similarities. Like, we're not coming together because we have the same lifestyle or the same politics or we're mothers. We're coming together because we're humans having this human experience, and there are these threads that bind us together. And if we are willing to do that, we can start to braid those threads and create a new way, create a new pathway, hold that space for each of us to be radically honest, to really step into self-leadership. Like, that was huge for me. The patriarchal system so trains us to look for leaders, to look outside of ourselves. So all of that, which both Kimberly and Kerry have mentioned, is what I think the circle space does. It allows us to connect back in. It allows us to find that leader within. It allows us to reconnect to our bodies, and through we'll all be at different parts of that, not in any kind of level. It's a spiral, isn't it? Everything's a spiral. Everything's a circle in my world. It's a spiral. It's like, where do we need to connect in at this moment? What are the practices? What is just being witnessed can be so incredibly powerful when you're used to everyone telling you what to do, or you're always having to filter people's judgments or other people's opinions. So I can't actually remember the question now, but the work that I do isn't so much about taking anybody through anything, but meeting them where they're at and holding a space where they can start that, whatever that is. That might be unraveling, that might be a descent, that might be an expansion, that might be hearing their voice and being able or willing to speak that into the circle. That might be reconnecting to their body. And I think, Kimberly, as you mentioned, like, we're just not in our bodies. We're just not here. So the circle process can really help with that, just to learn to be present. And skills like being able to listen to one another, that's huge. Because we're usually got our own agenda and we're waiting to respond, and we're filtering everything through our lived experience, and like, how can I justify myself, or how can I give my opinion? And being able to just to be fully present, noticing what comes up for you, not need to project that outwards. And then when it's your turn, being able to express yourself, which may be through language, it may be through moving your body, it may be through sobbing and just staying put and being held in that space, to meet your own willingness, to meet your, I guess, your own autonomy and your own power, is really on the other side of that. And so that is done in a circle. It might take a few circles. But I think it's the process. It's trusting that circle process and bringing that in to, multiple aspects of our life.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it really is like what both of you are saying. It's like just different ways to come back into ourselves and that power and finding that inner guide, that inner intuition that we all have. So we're not looking outside ourselves anymore for that approval or for, where to get the answers or what to look like, or it's all directly guided from within. And so we're just kind of feeling those ways. Yeah. Thank you for both of you. And Kimberly, you want to share?
I'm still bathing in what's just been shared. Absorbing. Thank you, both of you. There are so many ways, there are so many things that happen, aren't there, when we work with our clients, and but what's coming up now is that the things that the conversations, the words that are said, and the space that is created almost every time at the beginning of working with someone tends to be women, or those who identify as women, that find their way to me. Some men, but it's usually somewhere in, we can spend an hour together exploring all kinds of things, and somewhere in the conversation there's a feeling of them just realizing, sometimes for the first time, that what they're experiencing and what they're feeling about themselves in their lives is okay. So it's a feeling of validation. Non-judgment is an energy I bring into my space. They can tell me anything and everything, and they do, and they know that it's okay. But the main thing is this feeling of shame, this huge shame that they seem to carry, and I too, the people that I work with, this shame at, first of all, because they think they're the only one feeling the way they're feeling, or thinking the thoughts that they're thinking, and those deep wounds and fears that we're going crazy, that we're alone, that we're bad, that we're wrong. And in the work that I do, it's very often, like Kerry spoke to, about descending into the shadow, or experiencing a rite of passage or an initiation that looks to the world as it is at the moment like a crashing failure, because your health has fallen apart, or your marriage has fallen apart, or you've lost your job, or any number of things. And it's this shame. And so I'm very aware that by the time a woman comes to me, that takes huge courage, I think, to reach out to someone and book a session and then invest in yourself and pay money for it, when you're probably coming from a place of being quite disconnected from yourself. So even when they arrive, I'm just in awe of that courage, and very aware of the nervousness and the shame. And because I'm an energy intuitive, it gives me a heads up on what they're feeling, and I don't go in and tell them what they're feeling. But because I know what they're feeling, gosh, this is interesting to try and explain. I notice I kind of adjust myself, or my energy, just accordingly. It's so natural and instinctive now, but I just adjust my energy accordingly to create a space that's conducive for their particular wounding or trauma or story to have space and be okay and be validated in unconditional acceptance. So the main themes that come to me are women hiding in the spiritual closet. So that's been my life path, and my lineage is this witch wound and women hiding in the spiritual closet, fear of speaking out, hiding their oracle cards when the mother-in-law comes around, not telling anybody about their mystical experiences, and fearing that they're losing their health and their mental health when they are having mystical experiences. So that's a really big part of the work that I do. And that can be transformational for somebody, actually, just having somebody not freak out or meet what they're daring to share with you with fear, or so many people, and I've spoken to this a few times recently in conversations, publicly and privately, so many people having mystical experiences as part of their return to themselves, or an initiation or an invitation, or a rite of passage or a life crisis. And there are characteristics to that transformation and that rebirth of the sacred feminine that have been pathologized and labeled as symptoms of mental illness. Whereas in indigenous cultures and in earlier times on the planet, those experiences would have really been recognized and honored as parts of an actually recognized initiation and invitation of the soul, a shamanic initiation, for example. And so for me, a return to the sacred feminine and the work that I do with women is doing my bit to create the spaces that used to exist. Again, this natural way of being, a space that used to exist, of curiosity and actually, wow, of wonder. And gosh, how does that feel for you? That must feel quite intense, and and talking around it, and that can be transformational just in one conversation, because they might have carried it for years, fearing that they're struggling with some kind of secret mental health issue, and if they share it, they're going to lose their children, they're going to lose their job, and that's a powerful space to hold. And sometimes that's enough. That's enough just to be there and say, do you know what, it's okay, and this might be a part of a bigger process. And then I'll share a little bit more about shamanic initiation, or what can happen as we crack open and break down and wake up, and actually how it's part of a really big, beautiful process that's unfolding for lots of other people. And did you know that I've worked with thousands of people over 20 years, and most of them have been through exactly the same as what you're sharing with me right now, and they almost fall off their chair, they can't believe it, because they were convinced that they were alone. So those are the main, as well as all the things in the toolkit that can intuitively be brought out with a client. I think that's fun. Those are the fundamentals when I'm working with women. Those are the themes that come up over and over again.
Beautiful. And I think that's what it's so beautiful in the work that you do is it really is just holding space for women or from your clients or your men to start to tap into themselves. So it's like holding space to let them come and shine out. And I think that's what all of you are doing. You're creating this space where you guide them, but it's really about us finding our way back to ourselves. But it's so beautiful to be doing this in communities and to be doing this with people. And I think this is what's so important nowadays as we're moving. I feel like this feels like a potent time. I want to get your thoughts on what you think about this time and where we're heading, and why it's so important that we start to tap into this feminine energy, whether you're, like Kerry said, whether you're even a man or a woman, tapping into this energy, I think is important. Again, but yeah, I think that holding that space and coming together collectively is important, and this is part of the healing process. And but yeah, switching to the potency of this time, I wanted to hear what you think about. It feels like things are heightening energies. That there's more people talking about the sacred feminine, and yeah, it just feels like a powerful time. And I wanted to hear what your thoughts are about what's happening in our planet at the moment. Mitle, would you like to share?
Go for it.
Oh my goodness. Yes, well, this time I love that word potency. And I'm not actually sure I have anything particularly helpful to add to this. I feel for me what this time has shown is that it's an invitation for us to look at how we are in community with each other, how we're in community locally and collectively, and again, how we're in community with Mother Earth, with the planet, with the land where we find ourselves currently living, and what is it that we desire the world to look like, and what is the contribution that each of us wishes to make to that. And I suppose because Circle has done so much for me, I can't really overemphasize the amount that I have received from sitting with others in Circle, particularly women, but also in mixed circles. And so this year has really heightened that and deepened that for me. And instead of wanting to go broader, I've really wanted to, I can't remember, there's a beautiful expression, but like I want to go, an inch wide and meters deep, really deepen in to place, really deepen into what is my contribution? How can I contribute in a way that is meaningful and purposeful? And how can I hold space for others to explore that? I really don't know. And I've spoken to a lot of intuitives, like looking forward to 2021, and everyone's reflection has been quite similar. Don't know. Is this sort of, it feels like a veil that it's like, okay, what is next? I don't know. And you know, our linear time, it's a new year, but that's just our deciding that it's a new year. Like, you know, what we're moving through, I guess. We can't go around it. We can't go over it. We can't go under it. We have to move through it. And I hope that when I look locally at schemes that have started, community agricultural schemes, communities coming together, finding creative ways to be in community when we're being asked to stay apart all the time. I find all of that absolutely fascinating for what it is that humans crave, and how that phrase again of how we can be in right relationship with one another and with our environment, and then on that global scale, because we are part of that global world. So for me, I'm going to come back to my cauldron. I'm just putting it all in and thinking, it's a little bit like thinking of La Loma and singing over the bones. It's like, what are the bones of 2020? What have I got? And I'm going to sing over them and see what starts to take shape and take form. But my focus definitely community, contribution, collaboration. What can we create from this? What is it inviting us to step into? And how can we do that in ways that are supportive of each other? And yeah, that's it. That's all I've got.
I think that's beautiful. I think it is. I think that again, it's just the potency of coming together as a collective, you know, instead of that, you tapped into the hierarchy. It's not about the hierarchy anymore coming from the bottom up. It's coming from the bottom up as a collective. And this is how, I think what you're doing and what you were saying, this is how, you know, change happens, and how we, really help each other rise up to.
And that
whatever.
sense, yes, of reclaiming our capacity to do that, because those systems that we've been part of have really entrained us into the hierarchy, have really entrained us to looking to our politicians. But actually our politicians are responding to us, and somewhere along the line we've forgotten the power we have at that grassroots level. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, is how do we collect locally, and how do we move that energy up through what I call circular leadership, so that we're open to these ideas. I mean, you see our politicians, and I just, there doesn't appear to be any interest in what will serve the people, or what will serve the community, or what will serve the collective. It just, we're stuck in this adversarial, I need to be right, therefore you need to be wrong. Whereas when we can start to really listen to one another and offer solutions, offer ideas, and be able to compost them and sift through them and see what's going to help, what's going to support, when we're allowed to try things, when we're allowed to make mistakes, all the things that Kerry and Kimberly were talking about under this system, you know, we're not allowed to make mistakes. We're not allowed to be wrong. We're not allowed to not have the answer to a question. And so I've been working a lot in circle with what I call unanswerable questions, because it's an amazing thing. I was trained as a lawyer. You didn't ask a question you didn't know the answer to. Like, you need to know the answer. So to be able to sit with a question that doesn't have an answer at this moment, and be willing to sit in that void of like, I don't know, what's the next thing, or what is the solution here, or how can I contribute, and not need an answer straight away. Be willing to sit there and let life show you, let the inspiration come in its own time. And it's like, okay, are we allowed to do that? Yes, actually we are. We absolutely are. But we have to reclaim that. We have to remember that. And I think we do that in community, and listening to one another and sharing, and these, you know, beautiful conversations that you're facilitating, which allow us to start expressing those ideas without needing to give you an answer. Like, this is the way forward. This is what's happening. Who knows?
Yeah. How about you, Kerry? Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so so much was coming up for me when Mitle was talking. I was like, oh my god, I've just had to write a few things down. Yeah, I mean, what we've been through this year is like the collective pain body has burst, and so many veils have been stripped down for many of us. And many of us have been on this journey of awakening for a long time, but some of us have just kind of you know, maybe seen beyond the veil, if you like, now. Even my own mother is like, I'm having conspiracy theory conversations with my mum who's in her 60s, and I'm like, really? She's like, I don't buy this. I'm like, wow, I've been trying to anyway. But yeah, so for many people it's a new revelation. For many of us it's been the healing work that we've been doing over many years. So the collective pain body was like a death, and a death of the fast, and it forced us into slow down. It forced us to become you know, more present to what is happening in your own back garden, what is happening in your home, what is happening with how you feel. Like, we're all working from home. It's like, it's a whole different you know, we're closing this year down with a whole different reality of how we opened it up and at the beginning of the year. And the work that I do is soul style. So the work that I do is this outer embodiment of how do women dress in a place that is fully alive with the experience of who they are now, who they are today. And I feel like without this dying off of the old, the mask, the illusion of who you are within, you can't step into that new reality of the absolute embodiment of your eternal presence on the outside without first, like I said at the very beginning, dismantling these codes within of the illusion of the culture, of what is, you know, what is happening. So I feel like we've been through this pain body experience within ourselves and within the outer. And like Mitle was saying, God knows where we're going to be next year. Goddess knows. Let's just hold it out there with her as a prayer. But we've gone from consumption to creation, because suddenly we're forced into this a new system, if you like, or a new locality with self, of creating a new world within the world that we're in, and finding these parts of joy, of beauty that exist within our present reality, because we've been forced to. So I always work with a circular model of returning to slow, and all of the frayed ends, and I always relate it to like fibers and fabrics because I'm from the textile and the fashion world, but all of these frayed ends of burnout and kind of like overextending and giving and being and stretching and reaching and seeking, it's like, how can we interweave these within ourselves first? How can you weave something more beautiful within so that you can transmit that as a message? So when I work with women with fashion, there is all of the stuff we've talked about on this call. It's like, I don't know who I am. I'm scared of showing up in my fullness. I'm scared of the reality of what they're going to say. What are they going to say? How am I going to feel judged? So we can't even get to the outer without going within and really you know, pulling down those masks, pulling down the illusion, and then creating. So the feminine, the way the feminine works through my work is about creativity. It's sexuality. It's like the essence and the juicy radiance of the feminine coming through you and cultivating that energy so that you're ready to create the outer experience, which is the world, which is your purpose, which is the dream. It's reimagining what we want to see out there and on our body. So I work with this, but it always transmits into the outer experience You know, we work with clothing as well, you know, that is the main focus. But then it's like, wow, I can have the relationship I want. It's feeding into the impact and the legacy that you want to leave behind. Because when we remember, when we reclaim, when we remember the wild codes within us as feminine beings that we are, because we are, like Kimberly was saying, naturally arising feminine. You know, we are feminine. We can't push it down any longer. I've been in so many spiritual lineages that are like, hold that bad boy down, you know, beauty, no, you know, we don't do that. But beauty, and this beauty as a vision, for me 2021 is about beauty as a vision. And I feel like when women find their natural beauty, this feminine that force that can really come through you from the earth, then you can dress in alignment and you can magnetize the experience and reimagine the world that you want to see out there.
Yeah, beautiful, because that's what I talk about a lot. Is it is about first doing, like you said, you have to kind of weave all those things within you, and then you start to have that outer expression, and then we start to create the world we want to dream of, and then you come together with like beautiful like-minded beings, and then it's like then you're together creating that world that you want to be a part of. Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
I really love that. Thank you. And Kimberly, do you want to add to that?
Wow. When you ask what do I think is happening now, and first of all, I just wanted to say that I feel actually in the things that we've all shared, we've all touched in different ways on what is happening in the world now, the language of it anyway, even though we were speaking about the personal experience that women are having, you know, the falling of the patriarchy and coming home to self, and slowing down, as Kerry said, slowing down, and that enforced slowing down, that is the sacred feminine stepping in. Trusting the process, trusting the invitation and the initiation, having no choice about it, that is the sacred feminine stepping in. It's not even that we've got to find her or connect with her. What's happening now is she's had enough, you know. And let's say she is a she, and let's talk in terms of her being a being. She's, you know, she's waited enough, you know, she's been tapping her fingers, she's been watching, and almost like a loving mother lion. I'll let you fall over and make a mess for long enough. I'll watch you, I'll wait. But then soon enough, I'm coming in with my big paw and we're going to set things straight. And so for me, it just feels like the crumbling of the old paradigm, just the falling away of what isn't her. It doesn't feel like, I mean, we're experiencing it. I understand we're experiencing it personally, or a lot of people are experiencing it personally in incredibly challenging ways. But it's a course correction. That's what it feels like to me. It's a course correction. It's part of the evolution of human consciousness. We've had a chance to experience what happens when we go that way, when that energy dominates, and when this energy dominates, and the natural way is returning. And I love the metaphor of the feminine as a river. The river will always find its way. It doesn't matter how big the rock is. You know, water will always find its way. The river will always find its way. She will always find her way back. And I feel like at the moment it just happens to be those who are in a female body or who identify as women that are the midwives of the new world, that are the midwives of ushering her in, and are just physical avatars at the moment for that energy. But absolutely, it's in service of all of us and of everyone. And I do work with men who are very much in touch with that goddess energy and that feminine energy. And so I love what you were saying about the slowing down and the not knowing as well, because the space of not knowing is the feminine. And so I see the future being these circular leadership, and you know, meditating for answers about what happens in a community, and consulting in council and in circle, and honouring the elders and honouring the wisdom of the children, and making decisions that are in service of 7 generations on, not just somebody's profit margin now, you know. And I also wrote down, trusting a bigger process, fall of the old paradigm and patriarchy toppling, along with those those internalized toxic masculine energies that I can definitely relate to, that led to my burnout. So the overdoing, the overgiving, the driving, the striving. I'm not enough, I don't have value just for being. I must do, and I must have a lot, do a lot and have a lot, and then I am worthy. And so many women that I work with, they know that there's something wrong about that. You know, they feel the pain of that, the wrongness of it. And so I see as we're seeing an externalized version of patriarchy falling, and we will see it more obviously, I feel, in the next 2 or 3 years, certainly the next 5 years, it's all going to come crashing down, all kinds of things coming out. And it's not that women are going to take over, as I say, it's just that it will be a return to that natural way, and us realizing that she's already there, and all the ways that many of us have been longing to express or experience, and ways that we've wanted to live, things that a lot of people that I work with have dreamed of living in a particular way. I mean, how many memes go past on my social media of cabins in the woods and people wishing they could live that way? You know, it's just, I think it's just going to be a return to what we know is healthy and right, and just and equal and sacred. And there's a lot of shit that's got to fall down for us to experience that fully again. But a lot of us are already plugged into at least the feeling of it, or the energy of it, and doing our bit to express it through our work, to start weaving. I love that analogy of weaving, to start weaving a way that we can all consciously follow, you know, actively with our bodies in the world. Yeah, inspired action, feminine action.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kimberly. Yeah, I really resonate with that, and that what is happening. There's a lot happening, but I like how you said that the sacred feminine is there. She's there, just guiding us along the way, and that there is the systems that will fall, but then we're already, you know, kind of tapping into the way to bring those new ways or old ways, you know, connection of the old, bring me back to the new. That feels new, but actually it's very ancient. And the next where I wanted to kind of direct you kind of started going there is when women and men start awakening to this divine feminine power within, like how is this going to impact us in the world, and how we're going to see these changes happening. And I guess it's kind of maybe more like you tapped into, we don't actually know what's going to unfold or how it's going to look, but it's more of a feeling. But yeah, I don't know if that made sense.
I'd love to answer that. I think it's about we've had the famine of the feminine. There's been a drought of the embodied wisdom on the planet, of people that have fully integrated the feminine and the masculine and are in alignment with their soul purpose. And I feel like we are coming into a time of maturity. So the Ma energy, through that word, I feel like it's about the responsible, mature human, you know, really walking the world as a divine spirit. So what do we do when we are not infantilized children waiting for permission to do what we really want to do? You know, so how do we live in that embodiment of the higher and the lower realms in our heart space, you know, living hearts moving in the world? So maturity on the planet, when the feminine is integrated within male and female and all genders, it looks like taking responsibility for the planet. It looks like not, you know, seeing a group of homeless people and walking on by and getting to work and you know, and forgetting about them 1 minute later. It's like you become the mothers and the fathers of the planet. So we caretake everyone. So we step from this immature, irresponsible, self-destructive, self-sabotaging person that is riddled with self-hatred, riddled with self-doubt, riddled with lack of self-trust, into somebody that has full compassion for themselves and takes full, then, you know, has the capacity to fill up with so much vital energy that they can then extend it, and it ripples out like this golden stream of, you know, light that cascades out to others, because you've done that work to integrate the Ma frequency within yourself. So then you've got the coherence between your head and your heart, and your body, the intelligence of the body. And then, like Mitle said at the beginning, you're the body of the earth, walking the earth, being, I think I've called it a good eco-tenant, but literally we're renting this land and we have to leave a legacy for the future ones. I've got 2 boys, I'm a single parent, you know, I'm caretaking, you know, these amazing future generations that are going to be taking over from me soon. And I want to do a good job. I want better for them, like we do. So yeah, for me, it's like when we integrate those codes, we then step into full power. You know, we hold the what do I want to say? Hang on, is it going to come through? I think as we step into the empowerment of who we are and what we want to leave this earth as, that is the legacy. And we're not hanging on and waiting, like Mitle was saying, the politicians to tell us, is it going to go this way or swing this way? We are changing the earth by acting. So it's activism, and it's creation, and it's in reimagining. And we're doing that through the doing piece, through the masculine. I don't feel like we can just sit and dream weave this through forever. We have to be doing something different. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. And then it kind of, like, you kind of tapped into that piece where it is the divine feminine and the masculine, finding that balance, because we need both.
Yeah.
And that connection within ourselves first, and then we see it expressed outside ourselves. And yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Whatever, one of you want to add to that, Mitle?
Yeah, I love that, Kerry. Thank you. And it really reminds me, there's quite a lot of work in that area of rewilding, both our landscape and ourselves, around humanity kind of being stuck in adolescence. And this is what is, you know, perhaps the source of where we are at the moment, that we don't have those rites of passage, we don't have those initiations, we don't, and this is a very broad general, obviously there are living cultures that still do, but for many of us that just hasn't happened. So we actually haven't been through these processes of growing up. we sort of got stuck in this consuming space. And part of that for me of remembering is, how do we do that? And the same, I'm a mother of a son, and I take it very seriously, my role and responsibility to help him mature and to grow up. And I'm working with women now who identify with the archetype of the crone. And again, we're having those conversations like, you know, getting older doesn't make us an elder. So how do we're sort of looking forward to, like, how can we become good elders? Looking on what were our initiations, what have we lived through, what would we have wanted to experience in community and in circle together, and how can we now offer that to ourselves at this end, so that we can be good elders, we can be good stewards, and we can therefore mentor and give back to the women coming behind us. So I think, yeah, this idea, when we look at humanity and like, what age group are we in? We really need to grow up. This would be really helpful. So Kerry, I love that description of how we integrate those different aspects, and your idea that share of having such compassion for ourselves that we can only have compassion for others. We can't walk on by and look the other way, because we have that depth of self-love, self-appreciation, self-compassion, and the skill set, I guess, for self-leadership, that we can make choices and therefore make that contribution and start to leave a legacy that we're damn proud of when it's our time to tootle off. Rather than like, oh my God, see ya, sorry. So yeah, I love what you shared, Kerry. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I like that. I'm really loving this conversation. Thank you, ladies. Kimberly, would you like to add anything to this?
I was just enjoying and seeing imagery when you were both speaking of the two triangles, the six-pointed star of the two triangles, the masculine and the feminine, moving in closer and closer and closer, and then overlaying each other and then forming that perfect star, which for me is the star of, and in many cultures I believe is the star that represents that idea of as within, so without. So to change conditions externally, we do need to go within. You know, the keys and the codes are within, the state of our energy, the state of our consciousness, the state of how we feel about ourselves absolutely determines how we then treat others and how we act in the world and how we move in the world. And this sort of head-based patriarchal culture, let's call it that again, does take us away from that. It's Newtonian physics. It's all about product, and it's all about profit and the material. And so spirit and matter have become separated in the course of that time period. And so if anything, absolutely now is the time when spirit and matter and masculine and feminine weave together. And just for this time period, it tends to be the women who are just leading the way. Or the feminine that is leading the way in terms of us remembering what is already there and the natural way of being. And then I'm seeing healing happening in the men around those women. So then their sacred masculine, and for them there's a whole other healing journey of guilt and shame and reparations and all these things that are so important in healing much wider wounds in the masculine. But we're leading the way, and I think quite rightly, if we have compassion for ourselves, then we can extend compassion and forgiveness and so on to others. So absolutely, as within, so without. And that has been, you know, if we want to bring in that left brain with the right brain and the masculine with the feminine, that has been demonstrated very successfully in leading edge new science and quantum physics, theoretical quantum physics, and these amazing researchers and scientists that are really looking at how our energy and our frequency and our body and our cells and affects the outer, the external reality in all kinds of magical and wonderful ways. So it's not a concept, it's a truth. So I loved that you were both speaking to that so uniquely. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, ladies. This conversation, like I said, has been really just so enlightening and so from your hearts. And I think that's, again, you know, what all of you have been tapping in is really coming back into this space, and we're leading from this space. And I think that, you know, you're doing the work, like you're doing the work to help us, to guide us into this new way, you know, the way showers, the way that people showing us how to open up to ourselves, which I think that's like the common theme that we went through tonight, is to really get to know ourselves, get into who we are and truly love ourselves. And then from that space, you know, as you talk, then we start to open up from this heart space, and we've, like Kerry said, we find that compassion for all, and then we Mother Earth, and then this is when this new systems will start to take shape. But it's like, it is a crazy year, and we don't know where we're going. But I think, you know, when I listen to you speak, and it gives me that hope and knowing that we are on this path. We are on the path to create new / old ways of being, and that to keep that positiveness. And I think this is very inspiring. And I thank you all for being here. And Yeah, does anyone want to share any final words or final offerings to our audience? I won't say anyone's name. Just raise your hand. Just put it out there.
I just wanted to share that this solstice that's coming up on the 21st of December feels really significant, and obviously I'm hearing things about it, but in terms of this, you know, rebirth of or our reconnection with, or the return of the sacred feminine, ancient wisdom from the future for right now says a lot about that date being that kind of turning point. So even on, you know, even if it's initially on the invisible level, that turning point, when there's absolutely no going back, and there's an acceleration beyond that point. There's an acceleration of this process that we're already in. That just wanted to be said.
Yeah. Great, thank you. That feels very potent. That's like in 2 weeks, isn't it? I think. Anyone else?
I was just going to share a quote from Frida Kahlo, if I can remember it. I'm sure she says, I am my own greatest muse. I am the woman I want to know better. And I feel from that, the essence of Frida and all that she spoke to, the art of adornment, which is the work that I do. But what she speaks of is like actually alchemizing the pain that she felt in her life into art, into something that she created. And her greatest, you know, the person that she wanted to get to know even more and have a deeper relationship with was herself. And I feel like, you know, when we've talked, a lot of the conversation sometimes can be about, you know, uniting with other energies, with and being in relationship with other. But actually, when we go and have that deeper conversation with ourselves, so much greatness, so much wisdom, so much can be created from that kind of still point of going within. So that just also wanted to be shared.
Frida's with us.
Frida's here. Okay, hi Frida.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No.
Well, no, I love what Kerry said, and Kimberly, and for me though, it's always comes back to find a circle. Find people that you can have these conversations with, and that you can deepen into, and you can be witnessed and heard, and you get to practice that as well. And it's such a powerful space to be in, and I think it's really supportive of that own inner journey. And I still speak to so many women, and I'm sure Kimberly comes across this in her work, of women who are afraid to gather with other women. And so find a circle, give it a go. Because there can be so much power when we come together and see that all of the things that we've spoken about sort of mirrored back, and to feel that you're not alone, to feel that what you've experienced is felt by others. And that can be a beautiful starting point to then have that inner journey, whether that's in community or in one-on-one work with somebody else. But yeah, find a circle.
Definitely be in community. It's so helpful to actually be in a community of like-minded women that are gonna raise you into your greatness even more and witness you in your vulnerability. It's so, I totally believe in circle. I come from the world of circle as well, and it's definitely really helped to gather as a collective, as somewhere to actually, you know, we've been divorced from connection of the land, but also divorced from connection of other women. It's been stripped away. We've been pitted up against each other. So when we can actually sit together in the format of a circle and a collective, it's so radically up-leveling to actually hear another woman's story, hear all of the truth that comes up from that. So yeah, totally believe in gathering together and also being witnessed as well. So yeah. Samantha, did you want us to talk through what we actually offer, like, or anything that we're offering right now?
Yeah, I would like to move into that, because I will put all your details down below so everyone can find their links and what they have on offer. And like I said, I'm just truly inspired by these women, and I've been in contact with all their work. Actually, I did a challenge with Kerry. I've done a tarot session with Kimberly. I've noticed I've been on Mitle's circle, and yeah, and I've been in a lot of contact with people that have been with them as well. So beautiful women, beautiful offerings. So please, yes, share with us now what you have on offer at the moment. Kerry?
Okay, sorry. All right. So at the moment I'm offering some Venus readings for women. So anybody that is interested in my work, they can come in and have a Venus reading, because I work with the energy of Venus within the chart and how that relates to your soul style. And the purpose of the meeting is really just to find out any blocks, any resistance, any sabotage that is happening within your style, and how that's impacting your world. And then really looking at your chart just to see if there's any elements of how we can move through those blocks with how you're presenting yourself in your outer experience. But we know that the inner and the outer definitely come together. So yeah, there's only limited spaces for those sessions. And then I run twice a year, I run an online program called Art of Woman, which is my signature program. It's a spiral, so it's definitely the descent into the feminine, but also the ascension into the outer. So it's not just staying in the kind of pain body of what's happening within you, but it's actually how do we move and alchemize that and transmit that into style. So I run that twice a year live, and then it's an evergreen program, so women can join that at any time. And I offer soul style journeys, which are one-to-one personal bespoke tailored journeys for women that are just feeling they are fed up with what they wear. They want to become more circular in their wardrobes. They may have overconsumed, or they may have nothing at all. I work with all different extremes of this, or they may feel those feminine wounds are showing up through how they present themselves, how they show up in the world. And I work with women one-to-one for those journeys. So yeah, that's my offerings at the moment.
Amazing. And I'll make sure to put those links down so everyone can find those beautiful offerings.
Thank you.
And Kimberly, do you want to share what you are offering to the world at the moment?
Thank you. I'd love to. Thank you.
Oh wait, hold on. Mitle has to go. Would you want to tell us real quick what you have on offer in the world?
I'm so sorry. I realized I have another appointment. She's just messaged me. No, that's absolutely fine. You've got my links. If anyone wants to get in touch with me, I'm on Instagram, Circle School with Mitle or Mitle Southey. I hold the Chrome Coven and also train women how to hold incredible, transformative, powerful, inclusive spaces. So that's where I'm found. I'm so sorry to dash off. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Kimberly, do you want to share your offerings with us?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm in the middle of birthing a few new things. You can find me at healingthewitchwound.co.uk. That's going to be my new home online. And you can sign up for a free Healing the Witch Wound guided shamanic journey in meditation. And I have a free Facebook group as well, Healing the Witch Wound. And I'm in the process of creating a circle for women who want to gather and heal the witch wound together, and writing a book, Healing the Witch Wound. But you can find out more about it all at the website and sign up there for the newsletter.
Great, thank you, Kimberly. And yes, I'll have all those links down there for you to look at. and to check out. And once again, I really thank you ladies for being here. I honor you and all the work that you're doing. And I'm just so grateful to be sharing with you and all that you share in the world. It's really needed. So thank you for being here. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for the audience for joining us, and find out more below. Thanks. Take care. Bye.